Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. It's the Book of Noah, the children's edition. I actually got this awarded to me when I used to go to Sunday school every week. I believed in all this till I was 8. God looked at them and said to himself, "They are so wicked, I will have to wipe them off the face of the earth." Really? Really? Straight to genocide. What happened to 1 verbal and 2 written warnings? Straight to the annihilation of the entire human race because of fatty yellow trousers picked someone's nose. Really? Fuck. Anger management, man. Just calm the fuck down. Let's talk about this.
I don't think you question, sir. I think you believe in evolution, but you're afraid to say so because your conservative constituency might find that offensive.
No, I've said to you, Chris, I believe with all my heart that God created the heavens and the earth, the seas, and all that is in them. How he did that, I'll ask him about someday.
But you don't believe it. You don't take a fundamentalist view of the 7 days of creation, do you?
Chris.
I'm just asking. Do you?
Chris, where are we going with this?
Where we're going is the question.
Is this the caricature of how Republicans are anti-science
because I've taken polls because there are polls that show that a huge percentage of the American people don't believe in evolution. A lot of people don't believe in climate change.
Scientific theory is based on observations made in the real world. Charles Darwin based his studies on species in the Galapagos Islands. Creationism has its own hotspot, the Grand Canyon, which lecturer Ken Ham says is proof of the biblical flood.
When you took your children to the Grand Canyon and stood on the edge of the Grand Canyon, dads, did you teach them the true message of the Grand Canyon? It's a memorial of the fact that you are sinners and we are sinners, and our sin brought death and judgment from a holy God, and man rebelled against God again, and so God came and judged him with a flood.
Now get in the car, kids! If we hurry, we can still sacrifice your little sister at the Hoover Dam! There are people who believe that dinosaurs and men lived together, that they roamed the earth at the same time. There are museums that children go to in which they build dioramas to show them this. And what this is, purely and simply, is a clinical psychotic reaction. They are crazy. They are stone cold fuck nuts. I can't be kind about this because these people are watching the Flintstones as if it were a documentary.
Mr. Speaker, I believe that God created the known universe, the earth and everything in it, including man. And I also believe that someday scientists will come to see that only the theory of intelligent design provides even a remotely rational explanation for the known universe. But until that day comes, and I have no fear of science, I believe that the more we study the science, the more the truths of faith will become apparent. I just would humbly ask, as new theories of evolution find their ways into the newspapers and into the textbooks, let us demand that educators around America teach evolution not as fact, but as theory, and an interesting theory to boot. But let's also bring into the minds of all of our children all of the theories about the unknowable, that some bright day in the future, through science and perhaps through faith, we will find the truth of from whence we come. And I yield back.
We're going through the desert, and then they get the Ten Commandments, would be adjusted by certain presidents. That happens later. And they get to the Red Sea there, the sea, and they go, what now, Mr. Magic? What do we do now? We're going to walk on the frogs' backs. Frogs' backs. Thank you for watching me this far. Obviously, I did inhale. So, what do we do now, Mr. Big Shot? And he calls to God again, and the sea parts. And even the most doubting Jew is going, you're good. Here's the drill. Fundamentalists take it to be the Word, not translatable, not metaphorical, the Word. In the beginning, Genesis, let there be light. Could that be a metaphor for the Big Bang? No, God just went click. So you're saying we're all descended from Adam and Eve, then we're all cousins? That's right. Ding, 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 ding. Here's the thing. There are miracles, though. There's miracles in the Bible. Like when Moses, and I'm not talking guns and Moses. No, I'm not talking. Not Charlton Heston going, let the Jews go, the Pharaoh gets 2 in the head. No. Charlton Heston, a man who said guns don't kill people. Apes with guns kill people.
Now comes a new find by paleontologists in the newspapers all across America. A new study in Nature magazine. 6 to 7 million year old skull has been unearthed, the Torme skull, and it suggests that human evolution was actually, according to a new theory, human evolution was taking place, and I'm quoting now, all across Africa and on the earth, and the earth was once truly, and I quote, a planet of the apes, on which nature was experimenting with many human-like creatures. Paleontologists are excited about this, Mr. Speaker, but no one's pointing out that the textbooks, I guess, will need to be changed, because the old theory of evolution, taught for 77 years in the classrooms of America as fact, is suddenly replaced by a new theory, or I hasten to add, I'm sure will be told, a new fact.
What you hold in your hand is the proof of their power of invention, their power of technology. Against this, our strength means nothing.
And especially for you, Mr. Gore.
From my cold, dead hands.
I'm clearly Sam Elliott. Pay attention, hombres. This boy's got something to say. Biting social satire. Goes down smooth. Enjoy the show. I'm gonna watch that sunset.
Cold at hand, cold at hand, cold at hand. You're a big, big man with a little bitty gland, so you need something bigger with a hairpin trigger. You don't want to get caught with your trousers down when the psycho killer comes around. So you make your home like a Thunderdome, and you're always packing everywhere you roam. But the psychos win no matter what you do, 'cause they're gonna buy way more guns than you. And while you're stumbling out of bed, they put 5 rounds in the back of your head, or you get depressed 'cause the money went south, and you put your old shotgun in your mouth, and your kids walk in and they find you there like a headless lump in your underwear, and they move the gun and it kills them too, and your wife just doesn't know what to do, so she takes the hand grenade from her shoe and she falls off bed. And it's all on you. And your cold dead
what in the heck was that?
I accidentally shot my foot off.
Aw, shoot.
Somehow saying that, well, anything goes. We shouldn't offend religious beliefs by requiring kids to know, to understand reality. That's child abuse. And if you think about it, teaching kids or allowing the notion that the earth is 6,000 years old to be promulgated in schools is like teaching kids that the distance across the United States is 17 feet. That's how big an error it is. Now you might say, look, a lot of people believe that, so don't we owe it to them to allow their views to be present in school? Well, as I've often said, the purpose of education is not to validate ignorance, but to overcome it.
And I say to the grown-ups, if you want to deny evolution and live in your world that's completely inconsistent with everything we observe in the universe, that's fine. But don't make your kids do it, because we need them. We need scientifically literate voters and taxpayers for the future. We need people that can, we need engineers that can build stuff, solve problems.
Religion has actually convinced people that there's an invisible man living in the sky who watches everything you do every minute of every day. And the invisible man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of these 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish where he will send you to live and suffer and burn and choke and scream and cry forever and ever till the end of time. But he loves you.
Now comes a new find by paleontologists in the newspapers all across America. A new study in Nature magazine. 6 to 7 million year old skull has been unearthed, the Torme skull, and it suggests that human evolution was actually, according to a new theory, human evolution was taking place, and I'm quoting now, all across Africa and on the earth, and the earth was once truly, and I quote, a planet of the apes, on which nature was experimenting with many human-like creatures. Paleontologists are excited about this, Mr. Speaker, but no one's pointing out that the textbooks, I guess, will need to be changed because the old theory of evolution, taught for 77 years in the classrooms of America as fact, is suddenly replaced by a new theory, or I hasten to add, I'm sure we'll be told, a new fact.
But she ate the fruit anyway. Then Eve gave some to Adam. He took a bite too. As the sun was going down, Adam and Eve heard God walking through the garden. He was looking for them. Adam and Eve left the garden. God placed angels and a flaming sword to guard the entrance. Adam and Eve would not be allowed in the garden again.
A sincere biologist returned from the Galapagos Islands and wrote a book entitled The Origins of Species, in which Charles Darwin offered a theory of the origin of species, which we've come to know as evolution. Charles Darwin never thought of evolution as anything other than a theory. He hoped that someday it would be proven by the fossil record, but did not live to see that, nor have we. 1925, in the famous Scopes monkey trial, this theory made its way through litigation into the classrooms of America, and we all have seen the consequence over the last 77 years. Evolution not taught as a sincere theory of biologists, but rather, Mr. Speaker, taught as fact. And lest anyone listening in would doubt that, we can all see in our mind's eye that grade room classroom we all grew up in with the linear depiction of evolution just above the chalkboard. There's the little monkey crawling on the grass. There's the Neanderthal with his knuckles dragging, and then there's Mel Gibson standing in all of his glory. It is what we have been taught
I think our children have more robust intelligence and questioning to be able to cope with looking at all the different theories that are out there. Looking at all the different theories that are out there.
I agree. I wish there was time for children to learn all the different theories. They were shaped by extraordinary people who decided to observe the stars, the rocks, life, heat, light and matter with open minds. They made conclusions based on evidence, not their religious beliefs. Surely the knowledge they've handed down to us will never be kept from our children.
We have a revelation from one who says, I know everything, I've always been there, here's what happened in the past. So when we take that revelation, put on our set of glasses, and we look at the evidence, we can say, now I understand. Fossils couldn't have formed before sin, there was no death before sin, there was a global flood, that connects to geology.
Look, take a look at what he said in an interview with GQ magazine when he was asked how old he thinks the Earth is. Quote, I'm not a scientist, man. I can tell you what recorded history says. I can tell you what the Bible says, but I think that's a dispute among theologians, and I think it has nothing to do with the gross national or gross domestic product or economic growth of the United States. Whether the Earth was created in 7 days or 7 actual eras, I'm not sure we'll ever be able to answer that. It's one of the great mysteries. No, the question to him was, do you believe in science? And that's a reasonable question. If Lucy's over 2 million years old, and we have scientific evidence of human life of some form going way back 2 million years, do you just ignore that because it says something in the Bible? What do you do? And a person who behaves like that, it doesn't separate his religion from his scientific faith. Don't you have a problem with that person talking to them?
Well, I wonder why do we care what...
Well, why does this guy say that stuff? Why does he just say, I believe in science? Just say it.
Why do we care about what any politician
Well, because we
thinks?
talk about global warming and things like that. You'd like to believe you could start from a common basis, believing in scientific method, or us not. If you don't, then how do you have a conversation?
I don't even see the link between the two. I happen to not know how old the Earth is, and I don't think it matters in Washington.
And then there's another miracle. The night that Mary said to Joe, I'm pregnant. And Joe went, Holy Mother of God. And she went, you're right. Oh, Jesus Christ. What a great name, Joe. That is so much better than Shmuel. Way to go. I love you, Joe. Wait, hold on a minute, Mary. Hold on a minute. So I'm the stepfather of God's kid? Yeah. So I can't discipline him. I can't go, you've done wrong, because the kid will look at me and say, you're not my real dad. What are you doing, Mary? How did it happen? Oh, it's immaculate, Joe. Oh, it better be, Mary. It better be immaculate. I'm sorry, I'm transforming Joe into Ralph Cramden. But it seemed to be kind of appropriate because up to that point, all the names in the Bible are very Jewish. You have Noah, Moses, Zebedee, and then you get Mary and Joe. We are just a hyphenate away from Mary Jean and Joe Bob. We could have had Jim Bob, the Son of God. Praise to him, Jim Bob. He who finds us stuff and gets me a job, Jim Bob. And it said that night that Jesus turned to his disciples and said, one of you shall betray me. And Peter said, is it me, Jesus? And Jesus said, no, it is not you, Peter. And Simon said, is it me, Jesus? And Jesus turned to Simon and said, no, it is not you, Simon. And Judas said, is it me, Jesus? And Jesus turned to him and went, is it me, Jesus? Thus you see two traditions beginning, Jewish sarcasm and Gentile humor, together, born at that main moment. And the next day the miracle occurred, crucifixion, resurrection, and he rose again from the dead. And if he sees his shadow, another 2,000 years of guilt. Yes. And here's for me the one big question. How do you get crucifixion, resurrection, and then chocolate bunnies, colored eggs? How do you do that one? Even kids are going,
rabbits don't lay eggs. What is this?
Now you get somewhere and pray and you start doing some repenting here.
So once again, I repeat, the purpose of education
is not to validate ignorance, but to overcome it. And to overcome a situation where a United States senator can speak such manifest nonsense with impunity is vitally important to the healthy future of our society. Technology and biotechnology will be the basis of our economic future. And if we allow nonsense to be promulgated in the schools, we do a disservice to our students, a disservice to our children, and we're guaranteeing that they will fall behind in a competitive world.